The world had changed beyond recognition. Cities once filled with millions of people now stood empty, their tall buildings slowly being reclaimed by nature. It had been 50 years since the Great Disaster, a series of terrible storms and floods that forced most people to leave Earth. Everyone believed humanity had either died out or escaped to space. Colonies orbiting distant planets. No one expected to find survivors, especially not in the most unexpected place. Dr. Maya Chen stared at the satellite images on her screen, her heart racing. They are hidden in a remote valley between tall mountains, protected from the worst of the climate disasters. Was something impossible, signs of human life. Small buildings, organized fields, and what looked like a functioning community. After decades believing she might be among the last humans left on the dying planet, Maya had discovered what might be the last refuge of humanity on Earth. Now she had to find them, and she had no idea if they would welcome her or see her as a threat to their hidden world. Maya's fingers trembled as she zoomed in on the satellite images. The small settlement was nestled in a deep valley, surrounded by mountains on all sides. From above, she could make out approximately 30 structures arranged in a circular pattern with what appeared to be agricultural fields extending outward from the center. A small river ran through the middle of the settlement, providing fresh water. Computer, when was the last time this region was scanned? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Last comprehensive scan of Region 47B was conducted 23 years ago, replied the AI system. Atmospheric conditions and satellite positioning made detailed imaging impossible until recent upgrades. Maya sat back in her chair, running her hands through her short gray hair. At 62, she had spent most of her life as part of the Earth Monitoring Program, one of the few initiatives still maintaining a presence on the planet. Their mission was simple: observe the planet's recovery, document the changes in climate and ecosystems, and search for any possible way to make Earth habitable again for mass human resettlement. What no one expected to find was a thriving community that had somehow survived the catastrophe. Computer, prepare the rover for a ground expedition and send these coordinates to headquarters with priority code Alpha. Caution advised, Dr. Chun, the AI responded. Protocol suggests waiting for authorization before approaching potential human settlements. Maya frowned. The AI was right, of course. The proper procedure would be to wait for approval from the Space Coalition, which could take weeks, maybe months. They would want to send a specialized first contact team, people trained in diplomacy and cultural sensitivity. But Maya had spent her entire adult life alone at this monitoring station with only occasional supply drops and relief personnel. The thought of waiting when actual humans, real people, might be just a few days' journey away was unbearable. Override protocol. Personal discretion authorized under Earth Monitoring Code 17.3, Maya said firmly. The code allowed senior researchers to make judgment calls in situations where immediate scientific opportunities might be lost. Override accepted. Please log your justification. Maya spoke clearly into the recorder. If this is indeed a surviving human settlement, we need to establish contact as soon as possible. These people may have valuable knowledge about adaptation to post-disaster Earth conditions. They may also need medical or technological assistance. Waiting for bureaucratic approval could result in lost opportunities, or worse, lost lives. With that settled, Maya began preparing for the journey. The settlement was approximately 200 kilometers away, a trip that would take her rover 3 days to complete given the difficult terrain. She packed supplies, medical equipment, old-fashioned paper books in case the settlers had lost all technology, and a variety of small gifts that might help establish friendly contact. As she prepared, Maya couldn't help but wonder about the people she might find. How had they survived when billions had perished or fled? What kind of society had they built in? Isolation? And most importantly, would they welcome her or see her as a threat? 3 days later, Maya's rover crested a small hill, and she got her first view of the valley. From this vantage point, she could see smoke rising from several chimneys. The fields were clearly visible now, neat rows of crops she couldn't identify from this distance. There were people moving about, tiny figures walking between buildings or working in the fields. Maya felt her throat tighten with emotion. After 15 years alone at the monitoring station, The sight of other humans was overwhelming. She reached for the rover's communications system, then hesitated. Should she announce her presence first? Or would that cause panic? Before she could decide, a horn sounded from somewhere in the village. The tiny figures stopped moving, then quickly began gathering at what appeared to be the center of the settlement. They had spotted her. Maya took a deep breath and started the rover moving again, descending slowly toward the valley. As she got closer, she could see that a group of about 20 people had assembled, watching her approach. They didn't appear to be armed, which she took as a good sign. When she was about half a kilometer away, Maya stopped the rover and stepped out, her heart pounding. She raised her hands to show she carried no weapons and began walking slowly toward the group. As she got closer, she could see that the people wore simple clothing, handmade garments of wool and what looked like plant fibers. They ranged in age from children to elderly, and their expressions showed caution but not fear. One person stepped forward from the group, a tall woman with long silver hair tied back in a braid. She appeared to be in her 70s but stood straight and moved with confidence. "That's far enough, stranger," the woman called out when Maya was about 20 meters away. Her voice was strong and clear. "Identify yourself and state your purpose." Maya stopped walking and lowered her hand slightly. "My name is Dr. Maya Chun. I'm a scientist with the Earth Monitoring Program. I didn't know anyone was still living here. In this region, I mean." She was suddenly aware of how strange this must seem to them. "I'm not here to harm anyone. I just want to talk." The older woman studied Maya for a long moment, then turned to confer with several others who had stepped up beside her. Maya could hear them speaking in low voices but couldn't make out what they were saying. Finally, the woman turned back to Maya. "I am Elder Sophia. We have not seen an outsider in more than 40 years. Your appearance raises many questions and concerns among our people." "I understand," Maya said. "I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And I have many questions for you as well, if you're willing to talk." Sophia nodded slowly. "We will speak. But first, a question of grave importance. Are there others coming behind you?" Maya shook her head. "No. I came alone. My superiors don't even know I'm here yet. I should have waited for authorization, but when I saw signs of your settlement on our satellite images, I couldn't wait." This answer seemed to surprise Sophia. She turned again to confer with the others there. Discussion more animated this time. After several minutes, Sophia faced Maya again. "You may approach, Dr. Chun. We will offer you our hospitality while we decide what to do about your arrival, but your vehicle must remain where it is." "Thank you," Maya said, relief washing over her. "And I understand about the rover. I'll leave it there." As Maya walked toward the group, she could see curious faces watching her from windows and doorways throughout the settlement. Some people looked fearful, others intrigued. Children were being held back by parents, though they strained to get a better look at the stranger. When Maya reached the group, Sophia gestured for her to follow. "Come. We will go to the community hall where the council can hear your story. And perhaps if the council agrees, we will share some of ours with you." The community hall was a large circular building at the center of the settlement. Its walls were made of stone and timber, and large windows let in plenty of natural light. Inside, wooden benches were arranged in concentric circles around a central fire pit where a small fire burned, more for ceremonial purposes than warmth, Maya guessed. About 50 people had gathered inside, representing what Maya assumed was most of the adult population. They watched silently as Sophia led her to the center of the room. 5 elderly individuals, 3 women and 2 men, sat on slightly elevated chairs, forming what appeared to be the council that Sophia had mentioned. "Council members, villagers of Haven," Sophia announced. "I present Dr. Maya Chun, who comes from the outside world." A murmur went through the crowd at these words. Maya noticed many of the younger people looking confused or surprised, as if the concept of an outside world was something they had heard about but never fully believed in. One of the male council members, a thin man with a white beard, spoke first. "I am Council Member Thomas. Dr. Chun, we have many questions, but first, please tell us, what has become of the world beyond our valley?" Maya took a deep breath, considering how to answer. These people had been isolated for Generations, how much did they know about what had happened to the rest of humanity? How much should she tell them right away? After the great disaster, the climate catastrophe that happened about 50 years ago, most of humanity either perished or left Earth for space colonies, she said, deciding. That honesty was the best approach. Those colonies are now home to roughly 500 million humans spread across several space stations and settlements on Mars. Here on Earth, there are only small monitoring stations like mine, staffed by scientists who study the planets. Recovery. She paused, looking around at the stunned faces. Until today, we believe there were fewer than 1,000 humans remaining on Earth. Finding your community is, well, it changes everything we thought we knew. The hall erupted in whispers and exclamations. The council members conferred among themselves quickly. Then the white-bearded Thomas raised his hand for silence. You speak of space colonies and settlements on Mars as if these are common knowledge, he said. Yet to many of our younger generation, these are just stories from the time before. How many people live in your monitoring station? Just me, Maya replied. Each station is designed for one researcher, with occasional visits from supply ships and relief personnel. The nearest other human on Earth is about 1,000 kilometers away. This revelation seemed to shock the people even more than her talk of space colonies. A life of such solitude was clearly unimaginable to them. A woman from the council spoke next. She had dark skin and close-cropped white hair. I am Council Member Leah. Dr. Chun, how did you find us after all these years? And what do you intend to do with this knowledge? I found you by accident, Maya explained. Our satellite systems were recently upgraded, allowing us to see details we couldn't before. As for what happens next, that's partly why I came without authorization. I wanted to meet you first, to understand your community before reporting back to my superiors. Leah's eyes narrowed slightly. And if we prefer to remain unknown to your superiors? The question hung in the air. Maya could sense the anxiety rippling through the crowd. These people had built something precious here, a sustainable community, isolated from the traumas that had torn apart the rest of human civilization. Of course they would be protective of it. I can't pretend I didn't find you, Maya said slowly. But I can advocate for your wishes. If you prefer limited contact or specific conditions for interaction with the outside world, I would support that position. Sophia, who had been standing quietly nearby, stepped forward. Perhaps before we discuss such matters further, Dr. Chen should learn about Haven, about who we are, and how we came to be here. That way, she might better understand what is at stake. The council members nodded in agreement. Thomas gestured to a bench near the center. Please sit. The story of Haven is not a short one. As Maya took her seat, a young woman brought her a cup of hot liquid that smelled like herbs and honey. Maya thanked her and took a small sip. It was delicious, unlike any tea she had tasted before. Sophia remained standing and began to speak in a clear voice that carried throughout the hall. Haven was founded 53 years ago by a group of 76 individuals, led by Drive Eleanor Foster, a climate scientist who had predicted the coming disasters years before governments acknowledged the danger. When it became clear that the wealthy and powerful were preparing to abandon Earth rather than save it, Dr. Foster gathered like-minded individuals, scientists, farmers, teachers, craftspeople who believed humanity could and should find a way to survive on our home planet. Maya nearly choked on her tea. Eleanor Foster? The Eleanor Foster who disappeared after publishing The Last Warning in 2073. Sophia smiled sadly. The same. Eleanor was my mother. She led our community until her death 15 years ago at the age of 95. Her work was legendary, Maya said, amazed. In the space colonies, students still study her research. Many believe her discoveries about atmospheric regeneration are the only reason we might someday return to Earth. She would be pleased to hear that, Sophia said, though she always believed we never should have left in the first place. She continued her narrative. Mother identified this valley using climate models that predicted it would be relatively protected from the worst effects of the climate disasters. The mountains shield us from storms, the river provides clean water from glacial melt, and the local ecosystem was remarkably resilient. The first years were difficult. We lost 17 people to illness, accidents, and hardship. But we adapted. We combined traditional agricultural knowledge with modern science. We preserved what technology we could, though much has been lost over time, as components failed and couldn't be replaced. Maya listened fascinated as Sophia described how the community had developed over 5 decades. They had a school where children learned both practical skills and academic knowledge preserved from before. They had a medical clinic with a combination of modern techniques and herbal remedies developed through careful experimentation. They generated some electricity through a small hydroelectric system on the river, though they used it sparingly for essential needs like the clinic and communications within the settlement. We currently number 157 individuals, Sophia concluded. We live simply but well. We have enough food, clean water, shelter, and community. What we lack in material wealth, we make up for in quality of life and purpose. Maya looked around the hall with new eyes. These weren't desperate survivors clinging to existence. They were pioneers of a new way of living, one that worked in harmony with the changed earth rather than trying to escape it. Thank you for sharing your story, Maya said when Sophia had finished. I'm honored to learn about what you've built here. She paused, then added, I should tell you that the space colonies are running into their own problems. Resources are limited, social tensions are growing, and many people dream of returning to Earth. Your community's knowledge could be invaluable for planning any future rehabilitation efforts. This statement caused another stir in the hall. One of the council members, a woman with Asian features and gray hair tied in a bun, leaned forward. I am Council Member Min Dr. Chun, are you suggesting that the colonists wish to return to Earth? Many do, Maya confirmed. The colonies were built as a temporary solution, not a permanent one. There are ongoing projects to restore Earth's habitability, and my work is part of that effort. The goal has always been to eventually return, once conditions improve. Enough. And how close are you to achieving that goal? Min asked. Maya hesitated. Honestly, without the knowledge your community possesses, we're still decades away at minimum. The ecosystems are recovering, but slowly. We don't have proven methods for sustainable living in the altered climate. But we do, said a young man from the crowd, standing up suddenly. He looked to be in his 20s with dark skin and curly black hair. We've been doing it for 50 years. Several older community members shushed him, but Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Eli speaks from youth's eagerness, but he is not wrong. We have developed ways to thrive in this new world. Councilmember Thomas stroked his beard. The question before us is not whether we have knowledge to share, but whether sharing it serves the greater good, and whether it serves Haven's interests. Leah, the dark-skinned council member, added, we must also consider what increased contact with the outside would mean for our way of life. For generations we have lived according to our own values, free from the greed and short-sightedness that nearly destroyed humanity. Maya could see the dilemma they faced. They had built something precious, a sustainable community with its own culture and traditions. Opening up to the outside world risked disrupting or even destroying what they had created. I understand your concerns, Maya said, but I also believe there's a middle path. You could share your knowledge while maintaining control over how much contact you have with the outside world, and in return you could gain access to medical advances, educational resources, and other benefits from the colonies. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Thomas spoke. We will need time to discuss this among ourselves. Elder Sophia will show you to a guest dwelling where you can rest. We will continue this conversation tomorrow. As the meeting disbanded, Maya found herself surrounded by curious community members, especially younger ones who had never seen an outsider before. They peppered her with questions about the colonies, about technology, about what life was like beyond the valley. Sophia eventually rescued her, leading her to a small but comfortable cabin at the edge of the settlement. The young ones are curious, she said with a smile. They have only heard stories about the world before. They're amazing, Maya said sincerely. Everyone here is what you've built. It's remarkable. Sophia paused at the door of the cabin. My mother always said that what we were building here wasn't just a refuge for those first 76 people. She believed we were preserving something essential about humanity, our connection to the earth and to each other, that might otherwise be lost forever. She met Maya's eyes. Whatever the council decides, Dr. Chun, I hope you will help us protect that. I will, Maya promised. As Sophia left her alone in the cabin, Maya sat on the simple bed and looked out the window at the settlement. Children played in the late afternoon sun. Adults worked in gardens or walked together talking. Smoke rose from cooking fires as the community prepared for evening meals. For the first time in her 15 years on Earth, Maya didn't feel alone. And for the first time, she began to truly understand why Eleanor Foster and her followers had chosen to stay on a dying planet rather than flee to the stars. The space colonies had preserved human lives, but Haven had preserved something just as important, a way of living that honored both human needs and the needs of the Earth itself. Maya hesitated. Honestly, without the knowledge your community possesses, we're still decades away at minimum. The ecosystems are recovering, but slowly. We don't have proven methods for sustainable living in the altered climate. But we do, said a young man from the crowd, standing up suddenly. He looked to be in his 20s with dark skin and curly black hair. We've been doing it for 50 years. Several older community members shushed him, but Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Eli speaks from youth's eagerness, but he is not wrong. We have developed ways to thrive in this new world. Councilmember Thomas stroked his beard. The question before us is not whether we have knowledge to share, but whether sharing it serves the greater good, and whether it serves Haven's interests. Leah, the dark-skinned council member, added, we must also consider what increased contact with the outside would mean for our way of life. For generations we have lived according to our own values, free from the greed and short-sightedness that nearly destroyed humanity. Maya could see the dilemma they faced. They had built something precious, a sustainable community with its own culture and traditions. Opening up to the outside world risked disrupting or even destroying what they had created. I understand your concerns, Maya said, but I also believe there's a middle path. You could share your knowledge while maintaining control over how much contact you have with the outside world, and in return you could gain access to medical advances, educational resources, and other benefits from the colonies. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Thomas spoke. We will need time to discuss this among ourselves. Elder Sophia will show you to a guest dwelling where you can rest. We will continue this conversation tomorrow. As the meeting disbanded, Maya found herself surrounded by curious community members, especially younger ones who had never seen an outsider before. They peppered her with questions about the colonies, about technology, about what life was like beyond the valley. Sophia eventually rescued her, leading her to a small but comfortable cabin at the edge of the settlement. The young ones are curious, she said with a smile. They have only heard stories about the world before. They're amazing, Maya said sincerely. Everyone here is what you've built. It's remarkable. Sophia paused at the door of the cabin. My mother always said that what we were building here wasn't just a refuge for those first 76 people. She believed we were preserving something essential about humanity, our connection to the earth and to each other, that might otherwise be lost forever. She met Maya's eyes. Whatever the council decides, Dr. Chun, I hope you will help us protect that. I will, Maya promised. As Sophia left her alone in the cabin, Maya sat on the simple bed and looked out the window at the settlement. Children played in the late afternoon sun. Adults worked in gardens or walked together talking. Smoke rose from cooking fires as the community prepared for evening meals. For the first time in her 15 years on Earth, Maya didn't feel alone. And for the first time, she began to truly understand why Eleanor Foster and her followers had chosen to stay on a dying planet rather than flee to the stars. The space colonies had preserved human lives, but Haven had preserved something just as important, a way of living that honored both human needs and the needs of the Earth itself. This revelation stunned Maya. Other communities? You mean there are more survivors? Sophia nodded. At least 7 other settlements that we know of, scattered across protected regions similar to our valley. We maintain limited communication through a network of messengers who travel between communities once or twice a year. Together we represent perhaps 2,000 humans who remained on Earth. Maya felt dizzy with the implications. Not just one hidden community, but a network of them, all developing their own adaptations to post-disaster Earth. The scientific value was immeasurable, but so was the potential for disruption if handled poorly. That changes things, she admitted. This isn't just about Haven anymore, it's about all the survivor communities. Exactly, said Thomas, which is why we cannot make this decision alone. We need to consult with the other communities before proceeding. I understand, Maya said. How long would that take? Normally we would wait for the annual gathering, which happens in the summer, Leah explained. But given the circumstances, we could send messengers immediately. It would still take at least 2 months for all communities to be notified and respond. 2 months. Maya thought about the communications protocols of the Earth monitoring program. She was required to check in with headquarters every 10 days. She had left a message before departing, saying she was investigating an anomaly and might be out of contact for up to 2 weeks. After that, they would become concerned. After a month, they would send a search team. I don't think we have 2 months, Maya said. My superiors will send someone to look for me if I don't report back soon. And once they start looking, they'll find Haven eventually, just as I did. The council members exchanged worried glances. Then what do you suggest? Asked Isaiah. Maya took a deep breath. I need to return to my station and report something. But I could be selective about what I report. I could buy us time while you consult with the other communities. You would deliberately withhold information from your superiors? Elena asked, looking both surprised and impressed. I would frame it as preliminary findings requiring further research before a full report, Maya clarified. It wouldn't be the first time a scientist has been cautious about announcing a discovery prematurely. The council conferred briefly, then Thomas addressed Maya again. Your proposal has merit, but it hinges entirely on trust, our trust in you specifically. Why should we place the fate of Haven and the other communities in your hands? It was a fair question, and one Maya had been asking herself since discovering Haven. Why had she felt so immediately protective of this place? Why was she willing to bend the rules of her profession to give them time? Because I believe what you've built here matters, she said simply. In the colonies, we've preserved human lives and knowledge, but we've lost something essential about being human, our connection to the natural world, our sense of being part of something larger than ourselves. Haven has preserved that, and the world will need it if humanity is ever to truly come home to Earth. Sophia smiled slightly, recognizing her mother's philosophy in Maya's words. Well said, Dr. Chun. But there is another aspect to consider. If you return to your station alone, after having found us, you place yourself in a difficult position. Your superiors may not be satisfied with a vague report. They may demand specific information, or worst, they might restrict your future involvement. Maya hadn't considered that. Sophia was right. Once she reported finding human settlements, she would likely be removed from direct contact and replaced with a specialized first contact team with their own agenda. What are you suggesting? Maya asked. That instead of you returning alone, one of us accompanies you, Sophia said. A representative of Haven who can speak directly to your superiors and help shape their understanding of our community. The council members nodded, seemingly having already discussed this possibility. We believe this hybrid approach offers the best protection for all concerned, Thomas added. It gives us a voice in the process from the beginning rather than reacting to decisions made about us without us. Who would go? Maya asked, trying to imagine any of these people who had spent their entire lives in this secluded valley, suddenly confronting the technology and bureaucracy of the Earth monitoring program. I would, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see the young man who had spoken up in the community hall the day before, Eli. He stood confidently, though Maya could see he was nervous. I volunteer to represent Haven. Eli, this is a council meeting, Isaiah said sternly. You were not invited to speak. Forgive me, council members, Eli said, bowing slightly. But I've been preparing for this moment my whole life. I've studied the old world more extensively than anyone else in Haven. I've read every book in our library about the technologies and societies that existed before. And as Elder Sophia's grandson, I carry the legacy of our founder. Maya looked at Sophia in surprise. This passionate young man was Eleanor Foster's great-grandson? the connection to the legendary scientist who had disappeared to found. Haven made him an even more symbolic choice as a representative. Sophia's expression was complex, pride mixed with concern. Eli has indeed shown exceptional interest in the world beyond our valley, perhaps too much interest at times. She looked at her grandson with both affection and worry. But he speaks truly about his knowledge. He would be our most prepared representative, despite his youth. The council members conferred again, this time including Sophia, in their discussion. Maya watched Eli, who remained standing tall despite the scrutiny. There was something compelling about him, a combination of idealism and determination that reminded her of her younger self. Finally, Thomas addressed Eli directly. Your offer is brave, but the risks are considerable. You would be the first person from Haven to enter the outside world in decades. The responsibility would be enormous. I understand the risks, Eli said. I also understand the opportunity. If humanity is to have a future on Earth, it will require bridging the gap between those who left and those who stayed. I want to help build that bridge. His words hung in the air for a moment. Then, one by one, the council members nodded. Very well, Thomas said. The council accepts your offer, Eli. You will accompany Dr. Chun back to her station as Haven's representative. You will share only what information we collectively decide is appropriate at this stage, and you will return to report to us before any binding agreements are made. Eli's face broke into a wide smile. Thank you for your trust. I won't disappoint you. Maya found herself impressed by the young man's courage, though concerned about the challenges he would face. The transition from Haven to even the relatively simple lifestyle of her monitoring station would be jarring, let alone potential travel to the space colonies later. If Eli is to accompany me, Maya said, we should leave soon. My check-in deadline is in 4 days. You will depart tomorrow morning, Sophia decided. Today, we will prepare Eli and give you both a chance to learn what you need to know about each other's worlds. As the meeting concluded, Maya noticed the mix of emotions on the faces around her. The council members looked solemn, bearing the weight of a momentous decision. Sophia appeared torn between pride and worry for her grandson, and Eli himself radiated excited determination, unaware of just how much his life was about to change. Maya wondered if she had done the right thing in coming to Haven, in setting these events in motion. There was no going back now. Tomorrow, she would begin the journey back to her station with Eli, and together they would start the process of bridging 2 branches of humanity that had been separated for 50 years. What came next would depend on the wisdom and restraint of people on both sides, qualities that had been in short supply when humanity had faced its last great crisis. As she left the council chamber, Maya caught Sophia's eye. The older woman gave her a small nod, as if to say, "You've done what you could. The rest is in motion now." Indeed it was, and Maya prayed that this time humanity would make better choices than it had before. The next morning, Haven was alive with activity earlier than usual. Word had spread about Eli's departure, and it seemed everyone wanted to say goodbye or offer advice or gifts for his journey. For many of the older residents, this brought back painful memories of their own departures from the outside world decades ago. For the younger ones who had never known any home but Haven, it was almost impossible to imagine one of their own venturing into the almost mythical world beyond the mountains. Maya watched as Eli moved through the crowd, accepting hugs, small tokens, and whispered words from his community members. He carried a pack that contained clothing, a journal, a few books, and what personal items he could fit. Though he maintained a brave face, Maya could see the tension in his shoulders and the occasional flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. This was a young man stepping into the unknown, leaving behind everything familiar for a world he knew only through stories and old books. Sophia approached Maya as they waited for Eli to complete his goodbyes. "He has never spent a night away from Haven," she said quietly. "None of our young people have." "He'll be okay," Maya assured her, though she wasn't entirely confident herself. "My station is designed for comfort and safety, and I'll be with him every step of the way." Sophia nodded, her eyes never leaving her grandson. When my mother founded Haven, she knew isolation would eventually end. She hoped that when that day came, both sides would have learned something valuable during the separation. She turned to Maya. Perhaps that was her true purpose all along, not just to preserve human life on Earth, but to preserve a different way of living that the returning colonists would need to learn. I believe you're right, Maya said, and Eli might be the perfect ambassador for that. Knowledge. Finally, Eli joined them, his eyes slightly red but his expression resolute. I'm ready, he said. The entire community gathered at the edge of the settlement to watch them depart. Eli turned to face them one last time, raising his hand in farewell. Then, with a deep breath, he turned and fell into step beside Maya as they began the hike to where she had left her rover. The journey through the mountains was challenging. Though physically fit from life in Haven, Eli had never hiked such distances before. Maya set a reasonable pace, aware that they had plenty of time to reach her rover, and then return to the station before her check-in deadline. As they walked, Eli peppered her with questions about life at the monitoring station, about the technology she used, about the space colonies. Maya answered as clearly as she could, realizing how strange and almost fantastical modern technology must sound to someone who had grown up in Haven's more limited technological environment. So you can communicate with the colonies whenever you want? Eli asked, his eyes wide with wonder as they crested the final ridge where Maya's rover waited. Maya nodded. The communications system links directly to orbital satellites, though I usually only transmit data and receive instructions. Eli stared at the rover, touching its metal surface hesitantly. It's just like in the old books. The journey back to the monitoring station took 2 days. Maya watched as Eli's expression shifted from awed apprehension when the start facility came into view, all steel and composite materials, so different from Haven's organic structures. It's colder than I imagined, he murmured. Inside, Eli marveled at the technology, running his fingers over screens and equipment. That night, he struggled to sleep under artificial lights, the hum of environmental systems, replacing Haven's natural sounds. The next morning, Maya prepared to make contact with headquarters. What exactly should we tell them? Eli asked, nervously adjusting the clothes Maya had given him, standard-issue monitoring station attire that felt foreign against his skin. The truth, but not all at once, Maya replied. We'll report discovering a small human settlement and request a specialized team for further contact. When the connection established, Director Santos appeared on screen, her expression shifting from relief to shock when she noticed Eli. Dr. Chun, explain yourself immediately, she demanded. Maya introduced Eli as a representative from Haven. She outlined their discovery of surviving Earth communities while carefully omitting details about their number and locations. This changes everything, Director Santos said. The Rehabilitation Committee will want to interview him immediately. Prepare for extraction in 48 hours. After the transmission ended, Eli turned to Maya, his face pale. Extraction? You're coming, too, right? Of course, Maya assured him, though uncertain he gnawed at her. Events were moving faster than anticipated. That night, Maya found Eli outside, staring at the stars. In Haven, we see these same stars, he said softly. My great-grandmother told my grandmother they would guide humanity home someday. She was right, Maya replied. Eleanor Foster's vision might finally unite Earth survivors with those who left. Eli nodded, determination replacing fear. 2 branches of humanity, separated by disaster, coming together wiser than before. As the extraction craft ascended 2 days later, Maya and Eli stood side by side, representatives of different worlds with a shared heritage. Ready? Maya asked. Eli squared his shoulders. For whatever comes next. After all, we're building a bridge between worlds. Together, they stepped forward to meet a future neither of their separate societies could have imagined alone, one where humanity might finally find its way home.